My name is Floyd Red Crow Westerman. I am of the Dakota Nation. 1863, there was a hanging that took place in Mankato, Minnesota. And I have some of my ancestors were hung at that time. It was the largest hanging in history. And it was because a breaking of the treaty. When the government said we would provide the food for our people, and then when our family went to get some of what was part of the treaty that was rightfully theirs, the superintendent of the Minnesota Dakota concentration camp reservation refused to give them food, let them eat grass. So my people in turn turned around and stuffed his mouth with grass, and then along with other followers that pursued in the following 12 hours, the tribe had met all the warriors of the Dakotas who were on these reservations already. We were already on reservation concentration camps. And that's why we were getting this food from the government, because it was part of the treaty. If we would stay on the reservation concentration camp, they would provide the food. The Indian people who were put on trial, they first were marched all the way to Minneapolis, Minnesota, to Fort Snelling. And in the middle of winter, were marched there. And Lutheran women poured boiling hot water on the women and children from the windows as they walked through the town. There were atrocities that were taking place along the way. The men were all separated from the women, and the women, old men, and children were put in a stockade there at Fort Snelling, where they lived out and endured the rest of the winter in incredible conditions. 350 of them were supposed to be hanged. All the public wanted all Indian people to be hung as a result of the pressures both ways. And being at Christmas time, being forced by Christians to see some leniency, he only signed an order to hang 38 of my ancestors, some of who are my relative, who were hanged in the streets of Mankato on a chilly day, the day after Christmas. The American public should know that what they now know as reservations were really concentration camps in the beginning. They were called reservations to minimize really what they were. We couldn't walk our land, we couldn't leave the reservation anymore, we couldn't dance, we couldn't sing our songs, we couldn't speak our language. All these things were imposed upon our people. The present-day condition of Indian people throughout the country is still in a concentration camp lifestyle, because after the treaties were signed and that we were, in other words, agreed to stay on the reservation concentration camp areas, the government would provide food. And the food they then provided was flour, lard, sugar, salt. Flour, lard, sugar, salt, and then canned meats, which were most of the time spoiled. So people died from food poisoning. That throughout the Minnesota, throughout the East Coast, throughout on the West Coast, smallpox blankets were handed out to Indian people, and it was used as a measure of decimating the population. So this country had concentration camp before Nazi Germany. Nazi Germany got the idea from America. Most Americans might be in denial of what happened here, and consequently they gloss over the story of what did happen, what took place here. And it's a sanitized form of history that they teach their generations.